Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Bakery Food Safety Innovations, Where We've Been and Where We Need to Go. It's being brought to you by the FPSA Food Safety Network. My name is Chuck Senna. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing for Axis Automation. Also, I am a proud member of the FPSA Food Safety Network. And before we dive into the webinar today, just a word about the Food Processing and Suppliers Association's Food Safety Network. It's a part of our trade association, and we strive to promote food safety throughout all aspects of the processing industry. If you're interested in joining the network, please go to fpsa.org/networks, and there's a place where you can join up today. And if you have any questions about the networks or the other FPSA networks, you can reach out to Elena Sierra of the FPSA. Her email is ESIERRA@fpsa.org. Our presenter today is Karl Thorson. He is the Food Safety and Sanitation Manager at General Mills. Karl has spent 26 plus years in both plant and corporate roles at quality, operations, and sanitation, and he's worked with multiple product platforms. His areas of focus include allergen and pathogen control, sanitary design, and sanitation training and education. And when he's not busy keeping our food safe, he volunteers for several organizations in the food industry. And he's also been recognized for his operations expertise. So I know you folks didn't come here to listen to me. Let's get started. Karl, take it away.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. All right, let's get started. I'll give you a little bit more background about myself here. So I'm coming to you here from Minneapolis, Minnesota suburb here. It's a cold day in Minnesota, but I'm originally from this area. I enjoy it. My family has a farm up in central Minnesota. I grew up on a hog and corn and soybean farm, and then we switched over, and they're now doing free farm fresh vegetables and produce. So that's what my experience has been as I was growing up. Then I went to the University of Minnesota and stumbled on a thing called food science. So I got a degree in that after finding out about that great opportunity. And while I was in college, started working for General Mills in Pillsbury. Through that journey, got married, had kids. You can see my family here. So I got a variety of ages from 18 all the way down to 5. Yep, that's a pretty big range there. You can see the 5-year-old there. So a lot of fun to have that trailing little guy coming into the family. Got our dog Ollie there. And then, like I said, I enjoy the Minnesota winter. So I'm actually standing on a couple of feet of ice here in the picture with a spear. And I've speared this northern pike through the ice. So one of my favorite activities in the winter, as well as snowmobiling. So here's my current project, which is a 1976 John Deere snowmobile, for those of you who may not have known they even make snowmobiles. But yeah, I've been with General Mills for 26 years now in different roles, a couple different plants and corporate operations quality, and then my true passion for the last 10 years in sanitation and supporting our company globally there. So very excited to be here with you this afternoon and talk about, again, my passion around food safety and where I think our opportunities are going forward. So I'm a pretty simple guy. I like this quote from Albert Einstein: "If you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough." So I try to keep with simple concepts and my vision and where I want to go with this. So I really like people to think in terms of their own kitchen, right? So just like your own kitchen, obviously we want to make sure that we have safe food that we're making, but also we want to think about how do we make it as efficient as possible. Nobody wants to spend extra time and effort cleaning and dealing with their kitchen. So we want to make sure that we have designed it correctly to get in and out of there quickly, efficiently, and making safe, quality food for our families, just like we do within our own corporations. So a lot of things that need to be in place to support that. Obviously, good sanitation or sanitary design, making sure we've got access to hot water, cold water. We got a good infrastructure and hot and cold, capabilities, keep things hot, cold things cold, all those types of things. And really want to scale those up and think about those at an industrial level within our own plants. And we'll go through some of the main principles and concepts that I think about and opportunities where we have to maybe even get closer to our kitchen environment. We don't spend a lot of time, relatively speaking, cleaning and maintaining our kitchen comparatively to our own plants. And that's because, hopefully a lot of things in your kitchen are easily wiped down, easily kept clean, kept dry. We've got good plumbing. We've got access to a nice sink and a dishwasher, hopefully. That makes those things very efficient. We don't always have those conditions or those tools in our own plants. So we'll talk about that a little bit more here in detail.
Carl, just real quick, I did want to point out that for people, if you have questions throughout the presentation that Carl's doing, there is a drop-down question area, and you can type your questions in there. We will be monitoring them, and if it makes sense to interject right away, we'll do that. Otherwise, we will have time at the end of the webinar to go through questions that were submitted throughout the presentation.
Excellent. And that gave me a reminder there that I wanted to open the first poll just to kind of understand who's out there with me today, what function you represent. So hopefully, yeah, it looks like we're getting some responses here in the poll and understanding who is with us today. So that's great. The technology is working there. So we got a wide variety, it looks like, of answers and of people representing different function, which is great because it takes a wide variety of people to make sure that we make safe food, right? This isn't just the function of the food safety and quality team. All of these functions are critical to delivering safe quality food to our consumers. So back to this keeping things simple concept. I like the KISS philosophy, and I've changed the wording a little bit here, but I like to, number one, obviously keep things safe, but keep it simple as well. And I think if we focus on standardization and keeping things simple going forward, that it'll drive improvements around food safety and human safety and improving the environment, sustainability, equipment reliability. All of these things will benefit from us thinking about simplicity of processes, equipment, and managing our people and processes, those types of things. So I really like the fishbone tool, and I think it helps explain where I'm coming from on this to really think about reducing losses. So it's sometimes hard to get people aligned with some of our goals and expectations. A lot of plants and companies, we're doing a really nice job of managing food safety and delivering against those goals, and it's maybe hard to get some changes in that area. But if we can get people aligned with, hey, we can not only deliver safe food, but we can deliver cost savings, capacity to the business by focusing on this metric that I'm going to introduce here. But we really need to align on this concept of simplicity and standardization there, and which again will drive food safety as well. So the three that I want to highlight here are machine, method, and thinking about our personnel as well. And we'll get into more detail on there. But the driver for all of this and the metric that will be the catalyst to drive this, I believe, is thinking about how do we reduce the labor per unit operation. And unfortunately, especially in the baking industry, we talk a lot about hours of downtime for cleaning and sanitation and other food safety tasks. We need to drive that down to discussions that were more common in dairy and meat, where we're talking in minutes, right? We've really focused on design and expectations and changeovers and things like that. And I think there's an opportunity to move us forward by presenting the right metrics and driving those numbers down significantly in support of getting to simplicity. So the first one I'm going to focus on here is the metrics, right? So we think about those downtimes kind of as a black box, especially as it relates to changeovers. So how do we break open this black box? You think about, hey, we're really running blind when we shut our systems down to do cleaning and changeovers and all the activities, whether it's inspection, maintenance tasks, setup, while we're shutting down when those systems are down, especially in areas where we're doing manual cleaning, which is obviously the case in a lot of the low moisture food, baking, cereal, snacks type of environments that we're focused on today. And so we want to go after understanding the time and the resources and the labor that's being tied up into that. So it's challenging, right? It's not like we have a automated system where, like when we're running our equipment, where we know how fast belts are running, how many cases are coming out the back end. We've got all of that information coming at us, and we know and can measure and report against that. We've got to figure out a way to do that during our planned downtimes and some of these activities as well. So we've got some ideas on how to do that and how to drive that forward. So really want to focus on labor reduction, right? So if we can simplify downtime activities, right? I want to drive down the amount of time that I'm spending in these activities. Just like I mentioned earlier, like in your kitchen, you want to get in and out of there very quickly and doing something more value added and something more interesting than cleaning or maintaining an area, those types of things. So how do we get our people skilled up to do those and give them tasks that are, simplify those skills as much as possible, right? Just like in my kitchen, most people can go into a kitchen and handle, the minor amount of disassembly and cleaning processes that are in there, put things in dishwashers and, meet the expectation. We get into our plants and there's a lot of complex unit operations, and it sometimes takes a whole toolbox full of tools to dismantle and get access to clean those adequately. So how do we drive towards more of the environment that's like your kitchen and simplifying things there? So again, focus on this metric of looking at downtime labor minutes per unit of operation and really understanding with that information, hey, where are our bottlenecks at? Where can we push back on the equipment manufacturers and maybe modify current equipment to drive down that time? So it might be simple things like, hey, maybe we could change the guarding so it's not so heavy and complex that I need 2 people to remove it. Maybe I can change the hardware so it's a simple tool or no tools. There's a lot of basic concepts that could gain us a lot of time and efficiencies, and then drive down food safety risk as well, not only from a micro or allergen standpoint, but also minimizing the risk of foreign material because somebody put something in the wrong spot or didn't assemble that unit op correctly. So I think that, oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say something, when people think of downtime, there's planned and unplanned. When you're referring to this metric here about downtime labor per minutes per unit of operation, you're talking about the total downtime, both planned and unplanned, correct?
Right. I think our biggest opportunity right now, though, is the planned downtime. There's still so much opportunity there where we know we have to shut down systems for formula changes or, food safety reasons, like there's an allergen change or a micro risk that if I continue running, I'm going to increase to an unacceptable risk level. So I think the big opportunity right now is our known planned losses and going after those. And then I think there'll be a huge benefit to unplanned as well, and we'll minimize some of those unplanned losses as well. But this is the primary focus right now is planned. Thanks for the question, though. All right, I'm gonna try, so my next slide is related to, education. So I'm gonna try to do another question here under the polls. Let's see if I can let's go back to the kitchen analogy. So hopefully this launches and you can answer the question around what is the source of the highest bacteria counts in your kitchen gonna be? And hopefully people see that. I don't see any answers yet. So I'll let you work on that for a few minutes here while I talk about, I'm really passionate about, our personnel and education being the key for them. So we really need to understand the audiences that we need to educate. It's not just, our plant personnel, but thinking about the original equipment manufacturers, right? And how do we advance from just focusing on sanitary design? Because I think we do a pretty good job of that today, where we've made huge advancements in the last few decades around making things, made out of sanitary components and, those types of basic expectations and principles around sanitary design, to now moving towards how do we design in sanitation? How do we think about and model sanitation ahead of time? How do we prepare so that we minimize the impact there? How do we design it so it does get clean when we put it into the cleaning process, just like your car, right? How would I design a car differently so maybe it did get cleaner as I went through an automated car wash, or made it easier for a person that's doing their own cleaning of the car, those types of things. So this concept of advancing to making it not only an effective cleaning design, but an efficient cleaning design as well. And then onboarding and orientation of our people that are executing these tasks. So whether that's full-time employees, temps, seasonal workers, and then the people that are leading those people doing those key tasks. More and more I see that that's being, especially the sanitation tasks, but a lot of the food safety tasks are being executed by operations. So how do we give them the information they need to be successful in executing those tasks? All right, great. So the answers predominantly, and I don't know if anybody can see this, but 38% said faucet handle, 50% said countertop, 13% said salt and pepper shaker. Surprisingly, salt and pepper shaker. The reason for that is it's an area that gets touched as you think about going back and forth, salting and peppering meats maybe, and then going and touching the meat after it's been prepared, maybe using that salt and pepper shaker again. So raw, not great separation between raw and cooked, and then people just not thinking about that and not addressing that on a regular basis. So maybe something that you take a few minutes and wipe down your salt and pepper shaker, as it might be a point of contamination for bacteria in your kitchen. So that was an interesting learn for me when I heard about that one. But yeah, some of these other ones maybe get a little more attention because we think about it. Hey, I'm going to wipe off my countertop. Maybe even handles on faucets people think about, but maybe not so much the salt and pepper shaker. So thank you for answering that one. So like I said, super passionate about training and education, and I think we got to think about how to do that differently going into the future. We've got challenges, especially in today's day and age, of staffing our facilities, and how do we get them up to speed faster, and what's the best way of learning and educating them. And I know for me, at least when I'm at home and I'm learning a new task or have a challenge in front of me, I go out and YouTube it, right? So I try to figure out, somebody else has probably figured this out and they maybe have a nice video, a tutorial, how-to video on how to do this. So we've done similar. If you go out and do an internet search today or right now, you could look under General Mills sanitation videos, and I've created a few videos out there that hopefully you'll find helpful on, some basic concepts. Worked with one of our suppliers on chemical titration demonstrations, how to do a post-cleaning inspection. We've also thought about the audience and knowing that language is maybe a barrier. So we've done this in multiple languages. You'll see that there'll be the English version, and then also the, there we go. And then the language that we've translated it into as well. So, that's not the whole answer there, because it's sometimes difficult to get our employees in front of a screen. Whether it's a smartphone or a tablet or a computer, we don't have unlimited resources there too. So we've got to figure out how best to get our messaging and information and training to our employees. But this might be, part of the solution is getting them simple videos, short, simple videos and tasks that they can, rewind and watch again and make sure they really understand how to do that well. Another tool that I've seen that I think has a lot of opportunities is, for example, augmented reality. I think virtual reality as well, but the example that I'm going to show here is at a workshop that I did where we brought in a conveyor and then a company to help us with a headset and augmented reality of the situation of, how do I clean and dismantle this conveyor? So here's just a short clip that you're going to see that's going to walk this gentleman through how to dismantle this conveyor by having the virtual conveyor in front of him through his lenses, but then also having the real conveyor there for him to actually execute and test out his skills now that he's learned them and walked through the steps. So hopefully you can see this advancing here. He's interacting with the those instructions up in space, and then there's some verbiage on this augmented conveyor that shows him that, hey, I need to put this handle on here to detension the belt, and then he's going to go do that himself. So without any further instruction or involvement from a coach or anything, he's able to execute that pretty easily. So I think there's a lot of opportunity for this process to be utilized more to, educate people even before they get out on the production floor, right? We can do this in a safe environment, maybe not have the equipment there, but at least see somebody walk through the procedure virtually for education, for troubleshooting. There's a lot of opportunities for this technology into the future. The next one I'll highlight that we're also investigating is looking at remote assistance. So how do we connect subject matter experts with the field, with the plants and the teams that need their support? So we're looking at these headsets that you can link in with a web meeting. So I can live stream through this one employee walking around doing his or her job or investigating the situation, and then have that conversation with maybe it's a vendor or a supplier that's got the expertise. Maybe we've got it internally. Maybe we need to get a group of people, of subject matter experts together. This has been really helpful for us, especially in this current environment where travel is really under scrutiny and control. We can send less people to do maybe a factory acceptance test or to help us solve a problem. So again, I think this has got huge value going forward to help us connect the right people to solve the problems that we have in front of us. We'll move on next to machine design. So like I mentioned, getting into obviously making sure we're following good sanitary design principles, but moving on to sanitation by design. So just like in this picture, somebody's applying the chemistry to do a pretty invasive clean, right? We're getting the area wet, we're getting it attacked with the right chemistry, all that kind of stuff. It really takes a special design to make sure that we're as efficient as possible in this, not only from an equipment standpoint, but from a facilities design standpoint as well. And how do we, like I said, model this ahead of time and really push back on our contractors, on our vendors to say, hey, you've got to deliver a system that I can clean with a step change in reduction of downtime. So deliver me equipment, deliver me a facility that's going to take significantly less time than what I have today. So again, that's the focusing on labor and what do we do in design to reduce that labor. And I truly believe if we can get people thinking about this and we push back on the vendors or on these expectations that they do phenomenal work and come up with great solutions to make design changes to meet those needs, and we can make a huge impact for the business and for food safety. And one of the things I think about is, and we'll talk about more in just a few slides, is what is the preferred method of cleaning, right? So just like in your kitchen, I would prefer to throw everything in the dishwasher. I don't like spending my time in the evening standing over a sink and hand washing things. So we have the maybe the opportunity to make more things cleanable in an automated washer, especially in the environment we're talking about, very limited opportunity for clean in place or true CIP circulation type cleaning. But there's definitely opportunities to use tunnel washers and cabinet washers, dishwashers, those types of things to help clean things out of place and take parts and make sure that we're cleaning them, to a specific standard with the right parameters and repeatably versus, people that are maybe not so experienced in the cleaning process, and maybe they don't always execute the clean as we want them to. So a little bit more on the design side, going forward, we've made some great advancements. For example, I know a lot of people, most plants have some type of product conveyance. Here's an example of where we had an older conveyor for sheeted dough, and because of some issues, we had to replace that and upgrade that. So huge advancements here in design of product conveyance, right? That's going to help us from a human safety standpoint, ergonomics, and changeover time and product quality even can be improved by focusing on this. So I'm going to show you a couple more little videos here that show some of the advancements that we're thinking about that meet our needs from a food safety and efficiency standpoint. Hopefully you can see the gentleman there. This is the same belt that we were looking at earlier where it was easily detensioned. This is a nice C-channel design, so you can pull the conveyor belt off, but even if you can't on a certain design, you can at least detension it and get underneath the belt easier to address all the surfaces that may have an allergen or a micro risk that we've got to address or a flavor. So this one is a great example of one person being able to dismantle this. And then as we move forward, you can see these exposed components inside for supporting that belt. I got to advance to the next one here. You can see he can easily remove these without tools. There's going to be some bad practices here you're going to see in a second. Unfortunately, this was not in a plant environment. This was in a machine shop. So we'll give them a little leeway here, but we should be setting this on a sanitary table and, getting these organized and, having them marked so you know which spot they go back into, and understanding the sanitary design improvements that we've seen over the years. So solid construction, manageable sizes for one person, common pieces, marked for reassembly and making sure we don't mess anything up going forward. So some great examples, stainless steel design, minimize the surface area, and all around leading to a faster, more effective clean. Let's jump to one more poll question here. And I will hit launch there. So hopefully you can see the next question I have there. Is it acceptable to dry clean for allergen removal? And you're going to see that I have a interest in keeping things dry as well. We talk about our war on water and our belief that if we can focus on keeping our environments dry and minimizing the use of water, that we can really minimize the impact of microorganisms, especially pathogens and spoilage organisms. So I see a lot of people have answered, so thank you. We have the predominant answer has been no. I would argue that it could be either way. In some cases, it's very feasible to do dry cleaning for allergens. We have to meet a visibly clean standard and remove the protein from the surface. It has been proven that we can, with the proper access to the surfaces and the proper cleaning method, even dry, you can remove the proteins to an adequate level. Now, that doesn't mean it's going to be zero, but we're talking about single-digit parts per million, and being adequate to remove that hazard for our most sensitive allergic consumers. But there's a lot of cases where we can't do that, right? And we have to use chemistry, we have to use water to remove those soils because they're sticky, because they're burnt on, because they maybe don't have the access that we'd like to have. So I'm going to get into a little more detail about my expectations for cleaning method. We talk about method in that fishbone being a key piece of the equation. So sanitation is not a value-added activity, right? If we could eliminate it from our businesses, we would do that. Now, it's extremely important and needed, but we would like to get to a point, if you're value stream mapping, this would be ideal state, is no cleaning needed. And we can get there in some cases. Sometimes we have redundant equipment or dedicated equipment. I've got a dedicated, sugar silo or a flour silo, or even a place to a delivery mechanism for peanuts or tree nuts of another kind. And as long as I maintain those and isolate those from the rest of the process, I don't necessarily need to clean or maintain those on a regular basis. So redundant dedicated equipment is a great answer if we have the capital and the resources to do that. If that's not going to work for a process, our next choice is to purge. Can I just flush through the next product, or maybe salt, or a next a material, a pig, something like that, to purge out enough of the material to get to the next flavor, the next formula, the next ingredient that's going to meet our quality and safety needs. And I'll show an example after this slide. It's a great example of this example for number 2. The next one is we need a more aggressive clean. We can do a dry clean with brushes, vacuums, squeegee, or scrapers, those types of things. And then if that's not good enough, we can there's great tools out there to get after dry cleaning with chemistry now, non-aqueous, non-water-based cleaning processes. So those are my top choices. Now, if I have to introduce water, and I get into this kind of yellow zone, CIP, or clean in place, is my first choice because of the automation and my ability to control for the parameters, time, temperature, concentration, mechanical action via flow. My next choice is controlled wet cleaning out of place. So just like in the kitchen, we're not going to clean our pots and pans where we use them. We're going to pick them up and move them into a sink where I've got a controlled clean, I've got access to a drain and hot water, and I can control my chemistry and water, all of those things. And so preferably I throw it into a dishwasher. So we talked about an automated dishwasher and how important I think that is for the future designs. One thing I learned from pharmaceutical, as we did some best practice sharing there, is they only use CIP cleaning and automated washers because it's so hard to replicate and validate human cleaning. So much prefer to put it into a system that's going to give you that repeatability on time, temperature, concentration, mechanical action. So I think that's our future as well, is try to get things more automated. Assisted cleaning systems, basically a more manual CIP system. Controlled cleaning in place. Yeah, a lot of our structures and framework can't move to the wash base. We got to clean them in place. And then the most evil of all things is flood cleaning. I don't hear of a lot of people dragging a garden hose into their kitchen or a high pressure washer into their kitchen for lots of reasons, right? It's going to destroy your infrastructure. You don't have the water drainage to handle that. It's overkill in a lot of cases. We need to get more focused on spot cleaning. Just like if I spill on my countertop, I don't go in there and flood clean the whole area. I wipe up just that area that's actually dirty. And I think there's an opportunity to do a lot more of that in the food industry as well. So I rank these based on microbial risk as well as cost. And you can throw in there the impact to the environment and sustainability, and those types, and human safety as well. I think all follow this same line and train of thought here. I'm going to show you an example here of an extreme that we worked on. This is a granola bar system, a crunchy granola bar system that we have, and we would just utilize this system for making a dark chocolate product as well as an oats and honey product. There are no allergen differences between those two products, and they're a very stable product from a micro standpoint. Obviously, it's going through an oven, but also the water activity is pretty low at this front end of the process. So if you're familiar with horizontal bar mixers, Sigma mixers like this, generally they're flood cleaned. We want to get away from that and try to think about different ways to manage this. So first, we need to understand why we're cleaning. So in this case, like I said, the formula is similar other than the chocolate. So I just need to get the chocolate out of the system. So we want to think about, do I really need to spend 8 hours with hundreds, if not thousands of gallons of water, chemistry, putting my employees at risk, putting them in PPE, lockout, tagout, all that kind of stuff? Could I do something different? So I had them take the trim. After the oven, we cut the bars, and there's going to be some trim and some waste there, and had them put that back into the mixer as an abrasive. So just like a rock tumbler, we're able to turn the beater blades and actually run them backwards and abrade away the chocolate there. And then it looked like this at the end. So not perfect, but meets our quality standard of I can't have chocolate in the next product. I'm not introducing a micro risk because I'm not introducing water. I don't have a micro load significant going into this. So it's really addressing a lot of needs here, and we're not having to do a lot of, preventative maintenance work because I didn't introduce water. I'm not putting my equipment at risk for reliability. Just a lot of advantages. So I'm able to, again, if we think back to that hierarchy of cleaning, I went from the very last choice, which is flood cleaning, all the way up to number 2, which is just basically purging the system from the previous product. So that's why we're trying to get people to think differently and how we can advance and like I said, be more efficient, but also I think significantly reduce our food safety risk in this scenario. So the key takeaways I have for you today are really, like I mentioned, the KISS principle. So keep it safe, which I think we've had a great focus on, especially over the last few decades, especially as we've had better understanding of the risk, even in low moisture foods, low water activity areas where we have had pathogen issues. We have more complexity around allergens and gluten-free products and those types of things. So we now need to continue down that path, but also make things more simple in design in support of our employees and in support of our businesses. We need to focus on our personnel, right? Knowing the labor challenges we have. So how do we reduce the number of people that need to do the work in those activities and reduce the time that they need to do those jobs? So those are huge multipliers in cost and in capacity losses, those types of things. So that one's, and the other one I'm sorry I didn't list here, but obviously education and training people, the why, whether you're a supplier or a person working in a food manufacturing facility, understanding why and giving you the skills that you need to be successful. And then, like I said, moving to sanitation by design and talking more about it up front versus just dealing with whatever you're handed as far as design for facilities and equipment, but being more proactive, putting metrics, success criteria out there with our vendors and saying, hey, we got to do better and we need you to help us move down that path. And then method, to the extreme of my hierarchy, I want people to stop cleaning, right? I want to get it designed so well that we don't have to clean, right? Or at least stop using so much water and chemistry. So this concept of war on water, and not just cleaning water, but we have a lot of plumbing issues out there, leaks, drips, condensation that are huge in contributing to these huge recalls that you see. You can go out and read the 483s from the FDA and see that a lot of them are the key implication in the risk that they're seeing is uncontrolled water. So as we think about the kitchen analogy, we don't leave our kitchens until everything's clean and dry, and that also that there's no plumbing issues, right? I'm not going to walk away if I know there's a leak in my ice maker on the back of my refrigerator freezer, or there's a plumbing issue underneath my sink. But unfortunately, we see that a lot in our plants today, and we need to fix that. So that's future state that I'd like to see. So I will open it up. Are there questions that are showing up out there, Chuck, or do you have any?
Yes, well, we did have a few questions come up. The first one really deals with the manpower issue of it. One of the attendees noted that it appears that there's some new thinking needed and innovation, but that is not always aligned with how companies are deploying their personnel and their resources. Are there things that machine manufacturers and food companies can do to kind of tip that balance so that you're getting the right quality of employee associated with solving these problems?
Right, and I think it comes back to our lack of data and analytics on this too. I think if we better understood how drastic we could make improvements, that there would be an ROI on this that would be significant, right? So understanding better our bottlenecks in the process and how much improvement we could see. I mean, I've looked into and calculated examples myself. Obviously, we have a wide variety of product platforms that we deal from everything from raw flour all the way to thermal processed soups and everything in between. And there's a dramatic difference in the amount of labor and time that it takes, right? So I've seen as much as, comparing meat facility versus a bakery, for example, it could be 10x the time to clean that system. So I think there's a huge opportunity to address that, right? And it's just been the history, right? And we always knew that meat and dairy, it was a high micro risk. There's huge regulatory implications, and we need to continue down that path with these other areas and learn from that and continue making advancements there so that we can free up that labor to do other things.
All right. Another question I'll pose to you is with respect to hygienic design. There are lots of different standards out there and different certifying organizations and bodies. It could be confusing for people to try and figure out how to even start approaching some of these things. What have you done in your career to kind of clarify that information and give you the focus so that you're doing the right things?
Right. And that's where, there's a lot of great guidance out there. I think standards confuses people because it's not an absolute, right? There's a lot of different ways to design to meet our needs to make safe quality food. But we need to pick a tool that works best for you, right? We like to, we're using the sanitary design, the 10 sanitary design principles, which are, published from a couple different groups there. But it helps me facilitate discussion, right? It's not an absolute that you have to use this, exact thing in this exact application, but at least, there are, it helps discuss, what's going to be effective and efficient. There are some things that are required, right? There's certain materials of construction that are acceptable. There's some that aren't. But you gotta, pick one. I think they've all got advantages, and get it institutionalized in your company, right? So get your engineering team, your sourcing team, utilizing those and including those in your bid packages to say, hey, you've got to meet these expectations. And I think we have a opportunity to be more involved in that process up front. I think about where we're at with companies approving materials, whether it's packaging or ingredients, right? We have really robust programs for approving those vendors and then those specific ingredients. We don't do that kind of rigor with equipment and construction type activities. So I think there's an opportunity there to put more structure and standards in place that say, hey, we're going to review this in more detail and then be able to push back on some of these efficiency metrics as well, and say, hey, not only do you need to meet sanitary design standards, but we need you to do it, be able to turn this piece of equipment over very quickly from a maintenance sanitation standpoint.
Related to that and kind of building on it is when you're talking about the equipment side of the equation, you showed several wonderful examples of good hygienic, easily cleanable designs with the conveyors. But you also could run into, I'll call it product handling characteristics, or just the physical characteristics required to do certain operations. For example, if you're running a bar line or a cookie line, you can't always use that large diameter pulley at the end, because you'll end up stranding materials on a dead plate or a gap. And how do you propose getting the right people at the table to make those kind of value decisions, and how do you approach it when you're looking at, what overall, how do you balance all of these competing interests?
Right, that's a tough one, right? Whether it's operational performance or human safety, sometimes we butt heads, right? We want access, they want to limit access, but you got to get everybody to the table, and that's where I think it's really important to sit down and lay out those expectations of who needs to be at the table, and then who's got what everybody's got responsibility for, right? I mean, I get involved in a lot of projects, but I'm not an engineer. I'm a food scientist, right? I don't design equipment. I don't build equipment. I don't install equipment. I don't program equipment. That's an expertise that I've got to lean on to my engineering team and to our OEMs and contractors and things. But I got to be clear on my expectations around what is, safe quality food and how do we meet that. And then we've got to negotiate on how we meet everybody's success criteria. So yeah, it takes that broad group, and making sure you step up during those meetings, and if you do see somebody missing from that conversation, making sure you follow up with it, and that you've got them on the the ongoing agenda for that project, and they've got the focus on their punch list as well. So it can be challenging, but you got to have the right people, and then that's why tools like this help support and facilitate that, right? If I've got a newer person on the team that maybe doesn't understand sanitary design, a tool like this sanitary design checklist that I mentioned can help them facilitate that. Hey, I don't know all the answers to this, but it says here I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z, or ask these questions. So giving people those resources, I think, can be extremely helpful in connecting the dots and facilitating those discussions.
And I'm going to take a moment here to play that off on a plug for our organization. If you visit the FBSA website, there are a number of online resources that have been curated by the Food Safety Network, where you can go and look at standards and find access to some of these checklists that Karl is talking about, so that if you're considering buying equipment, or on the manufacturer side, you're designing equipment, it can help you understand what to look for, and how to help customers and food processors address the daily challenges that they run into.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's one of the, it's taken me many years to figure this out, but I think it's one of the critical things is asking for help and knowing where to get your help from. So being able to tap into those resources, like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I've got connections that with really smart people that can help me get the answers to the team. So investigating and in utilizing groups like this, resources to help you be successful, and then you'll continue to gain knowledge over time, and maybe know the answers in the future. But there's some great tools out there.
Good. Well, I don't see any more questions popping up here. Is there any overarching thought or idea that you'd like to leave us with before we all head our separate ways?
Yeah, I just thank you everybody for joining, taking the time out of your day. Food safety is always top of mind. I mean, all of us got to eat, And we want to make sure that we're supplying our family and friends with the safest food. And I think we're doing a great job on that. But I think if we really focus on, simplifying this whole process for our employees, that we can continue to even make another step change in food safety and help the business as well. So keep it simple, right?
Exactly. Well, thank you very much for taking time to share your experience and what you've learned with all of us here on the webinar. I also want to thank Food Processing Suppliers Association for sponsoring this opportunity. And again, if you're interested in learning more, the website is www.fpsa.org. Take some time to browse through the different areas. There's a lot of information in many different aspects of food production and food safety, and it's a tremendous resource for both equipment builders and for food processors themselves. So again, thank you very much, Carl, and thank you to everybody for attending.
All right, thank you, everyone.